Welcome to The Current by TreasureCoast.com, where we discuss interesting people, places, and happenings on Florida's Treasure Coast.
Thanks so much for joining us. You're the president and the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Martin County, and I appreciate you being on. Thanks for joining the show.
Well, listen, we appreciate the opportunity. Any chance to talk to great people like you with the audience that you have is an opportunity to move our mission forward. So we're not going to ever hesitate to jump at those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I don't know if Ian had told you. Ian had hooked us up, and I had volunteered a bit at the Boys and Girls Club of Martin County when I was in high school, just kind of in passing. And there were some opportunities that we had with some friends, and so I have some familiarity with the organization, and so it's kind of serendipitous when he had messaged me, and when we got to get this on the calendar, it was a conversation that I'm really excited to have. So I think maybe we could start. For a lot of people, they probably heard of the Boys and Girls Club. Do you want to give an overview of who you are, what you do, and what people should know about you and the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And certainly a shout out to Ian, who runs marketing here at the Boys and Girls Clubs and has absolutely, revolutionized that for us. The only thing that I really don't agree with Ian on is he is a fitness freak. He likes to run for fun. And there's nothing fun about running, in my in my opinion. So I'm kind of I'm a former football player, so my general philosophy to running is that you have to come back. So I can just sit here and wait. When you
That's
think
awesome.
about the Boys and Girls Clubs, I'll start with what the Boys and Girls Clubs of America is. So it is one of the largest sort of federally funded um, charities for children in the world, right? So there are 1,200 charters for Boys and Girls Clubs across the globe, including on most military bases, right? And so within that 1,200 here in Martin County, we have five facilities and a lot of community impact sites. So you just think about the scope. There's north of 5,000 clubs in the Boys and Girls Clubs of America network. So it's really cool to be a part of something that's that big, that huge, and kind of that kind of movement, right? But Boys and Girls Clubs across the board, they really center on three things. One is academic enrichment, right? Academic excellence. We understand that all the other things that we do are great, but if you can't read and you can't do math, you're not going to get very far in life, right? Common sense. Second thing is we do really believe in building good character and citizenship, right? And so that's the idea that, especially perhaps in today's world, with all the divisiveness that exists, kids that can operate with trustworthiness, integrity, fidelity, have real conscious conversations and be able to move an agenda of collective impact forward. That's probably the way the community becomes what it can be. And then healthy lifestyles. That's where Ian comes in. Healthy lifestyles. So that's really about everything from healthy eating to mental health and well-being. For us here in Martin County, I would say we've been undergoing sort of what I would call a remarkable renaissance in the past 5 or 6 years. Once upon a time, we were kind of a mom and pop nonprofit with an annual operating budget, maybe $2 million. Now we're almost $16 million a year over the course of the last 5 years, right? Tripling the number of kids that we've served, tripling the number of community impact sites. When you think about Boys and Girls Clubs, I think to a lot of your listeners, and even when I took this job, because I came straight into the Boys and Girls Clubs as the CEO, you sort of you close your eyes, you think about what is a Boys and Girls Club. You think, hey, that's where I used to go after school, maybe get an ice cream cone. I played some basketball. Mom and dad picked me up. What I would tell you is that your Boys and Girls Clubs, and I say your because we believe that our buildings and our assets and the programs we do are for the community. So they are your clubs, but your Boys and Girls Clubs, they're not your mom and dad's Boys and Girls Clubs, right? So, you come into our clubs, you're going to get music, arts, dance, digital music production studio, uh, tutoring from one of our nearly 40 teachers, right? You're going to have access to our two food trucks, our barbecue program, our two commercial kitchens, our workforce programs, which go from drone flight to skilled trades to fashion. So we are really kind of about elevating our kids and not just delivering them to high school graduation, but making sure that they are economically stable, upwardly mobile, entrepreneurially capable, and home ownership ready, because we believe that's going to change the foundation of what the Treasure Coast can become. So I will get off my soapbox because I'm a big guy and and I'll stop there. So
But that's a great overview, and I'm glad you touched on that last part too, because I think a lot of people have seen it either on social media. Sometimes, you always see the Boys and Girls Club pop up, whether it's there's events or something coming up. You see it somewhere, and it's interesting to hear about the newer programs. Like when you talk about the different programs that are being offered, I'm interested to hear more on the different programs that are offered for kids that people might not know about, and maybe how programs are differ depending on age groups. I'm sure that there are kids coming in there that are they're very young, and there's kids coming in there that are about to, like you said, graduate from high school. How do these things differ, and what kind of offerings can people expect that they might not be used to seeing?
yeah. So I should have said this too. We serve kids from 5 to 24 years old now. And that's been a recent
Wow,
shift from
wow.
Boys and Girls Clubs of so it's been a recent shift from Boys and Girls Clubs of America. It used to end at 18. I think it's because
Right.
kids can stay on parents' insurance until they're 24. I'm just kidding. I don't I don't know why we chose 24, but nonetheless, we do go all the way up to 24 now. I would say that when you come in the clubs, outside of making sure that you're going to get character building programs and the healthy lifestyles and the academic excellence, it is a combination of sort of like a choose your own adventure. You're going to create your own map through the experiences that we have in the clubs. And we're also going to be intentional about exposing you to stuff so that you can hopefully find some strengths, discover some strengths, some talents, some abilities that you might not have ever known that you had, or understanding that almost 90% of our kids qualify for free or reduced lunch. Maybe you've had an obstacle to access, right? So I mean, you've got digital music production studios. As I mentioned before, we're doing volleyball, golf, flag football, basketball. We have golf simulators in the clubs that we can teach angles for how do you do math, but also teach you about golf. And that's going to start with the little kids and cascade up as you go through. And I should pause there and say, but if you're struggling with reading, we've got breakout places and special sets of teachers who are designed to catch you up, right? If you really have an affinity for the guitar, we can route you over to this place, and we have somebody that's going to come in and help you with guitar or piano or whatever it is, right? So we really try to build the right baselines, build the right foundations, but then accelerate from there based on what a kid's strengths and interests are. What's really new for us is what we're doing with our teens. So I'll give you a couple of examples. At age 13, you can go through our culinary internship. We give you $599 for completing that as a 13-year-old. And then at age 14, you come on our payroll making $15 an hour to
Wow.
cook all of the food for our entire system. We have 121 kids that work for us in our culinary program. They cook all the food at our Hope Sound Club, for our Hope Sound Club, our Indian Town Club, Port Salerno, Stewart, and our Jensen Beach clubs. Those are our 5 main footprint clubs. They do all the food for the Hope Sound Early Learning Centers. They're doing the food for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Palm Beaches. They're running the cafeteria at the Treasure Coast Classical Academy. So we have this huge culinary and hospitality training program. And again, you're 14 and you're working with us somewhere between 2, 3, 4 hours a week, all the way up to 14, 18. We have 2 food trucks that do 20 events a month, 20, 30 events a month. Every time our kids are going out, they're ordering the food, they're sourcing the food, they're cooking the food, they're doing the menu, they're running the point of the sale system, and they're reconciling the books under adult supervision. But that's kind of that's how we're really changing things. This earn while you learn, right? This idea that
Right.
you can make money, but you got to show up, right? We have a drone pilot certification program with damn near 100% pass rate when you complete the 23-hour training that you can do at 16, and then you can then you can work checking the solar panel fields at FP&L, or you can work for real estate, or you can work for those fishermen that cheat to find their fish. I'm just kidding. The we've got a skilled trades program, the only registered pre-apprentice program in Martin County, and we focus on carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. You're running through that program and you're coming out with your OSHA 10 certification, forklift operation, aerial lift operation, workplace, CPR, workplace first aid. So skilled trades is a big deal for us. We have a fashion program, a beginning and an advanced fashion program that kids in middle school and high school can do, where they're designing their own prom dresses We have advanced manufacturing programs that end at 2 years with human machine interface and these kinds of things. Um, and at the end of it all, though, the idea here is that you can be 18, 19 years old with a job making 50, 60, $70,000 without necessarily having to have a college education and without necessarily having to absorb the debt that
Right.
comes with that, right? So the idea is that we can move faster than the public schools, faster than the traditional higher ed system, because we're about speed to target. We're about changing lives right here, right now. So, but I would say that pretty much anything you can think of, we probably have it at one of our clubs. We've got kids selling stuff on Etsy. We have people screen printing. We have people crocheting. We have just about every sport you can think of, and then we have these incredible workforce programs. And top all that off, we are one of the only boys and girls clubs, if not the only one, in the state of Florida with a social worker in each of our buildings, which kids can access for free. We don't bill for it. You don't have to have insurance to see our people to get that kind of therapy. So it's the idea that, again, we're about removing obstacles and getting the right services to the kids that are going to unlock their potential.
That's really interesting to hear as well. Having so many different things for these kids to use, but a social worker is probably something that a lot of kids, especially if they're coming from any sort of area where maybe that's an aspect of their life that doesn't they don't get the help there. Um, that's amazing for some, for also for 14 years old to be coming up making $15 an hour and to really see the fruits of your labor, because there's so many places where you work, you get some sort of certificate, and then you kind of are out the door. But to get that kind of culinary expertise or to go through a program there, and then they're in the system reaping the benefits of the work they just put in, that's really cool. I'm interested to hear what you think some of the biggest challenges are that you all have there, whether it's with the children or whether it's with the logistics or whether it's part of finding these people like social workers or specialized teachers, or what the specific challenges are.
Yeah. So, well, I think, on the kids side, so I'll start with the kids first, right? I talked about the number of kids and families that are living at sort of the, what would be the federally qualified poverty line or below, right? So we know
Right.
that being poor is trauma, right? Which is why
Mhm.
we have social workers, in the club. So, when you don't have access and you don't have opportunity, right? Everybody's given a certain amount of choices and chances in life, right? And so some just don't have as many as others. And so when we can, so whether that is being behind in math and English, which we see at alarming rates, right? Martin County boasts being an A-rated school system, but
Mhm.
they have 6 elementary schools that have gotten a grade level C or below, where less than half of their kids are reading at grade level by third grade, right? So, it's a numbers game and it's a PR game, and we want businesses to move here, but the kids that are living here aren't reading at grade level. So we've got some academic remediation. We've certainly got some trauma. We've got to work through. We've really been attacking this issue of how do we get parents back in the clubs through meals, through programs, getting them engaged, because this idea that we only have them a certain number of hours a day, and during the day, that's after school. Let's say from 2:30 to 6:30, and in the summer, it's maybe 7 in the morning till 6:30 at night. And we're feeding them, and we're doing all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, that's a snapshot of that's a small piece of the day. So we got
Yeah.
to get that engagement and that partnership from mom, dad, auntie, uncle, grandma, whoever, whoever it is. Certainly running a nonprofit, we've gotten to be a fairly big place. Um, I think we have the most talented people in the whole Treasure Coast working at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Martin County. However, competing with for-profit institutions for high-level talent is always a challenge, right?
Yeah.
You know, um, Great marketers can go and make a lot more money probably for Bank of America or JP Morgan or some or some Fortune 500 company than they can working at the Boys and Girls Clubs. But I do believe that if you're intentional in your hiring process and you get people who are purpose built, purpose driven, and purpose aligned, and they want to be here for the kids because they understand that that's a responsibility, right? They understand that they got to show up and have the kids hope for a world that they might not even believe in themselves at that moment. That's so. But sourcing staff is always a challenge. And then on the fundraising side, when you think about how do you bring resources into the Boys and Girls Clubs, it's a blessing and a curse. The way I just described the Boys and Girls Clubs, kind of feels a little bit like Walmart, right? Got a little bit of everything. So when you don't have one key, strong identity, it becomes tough sometimes to raise resources against it because, we go pretty deep in a lot of areas, but there are a lot of other nonprofits who go far deeper in mental health or far deeper in, choose your topic than we do. We are far and away the largest youth serving organization in Martin County outside of the school district, 6,000 members, right? So the responsibility for us becomes, how do we resource and provide a platform and expose kids and accelerate them as much as we can, and then create this ecosystem where we can work with all the other great nonprofits that exist in the Treasure Coast and get the kids where they need to go after us, or in concert with us, whatever it might be. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point as well. What are your? I mean, you had mentioned fundraising and some other organizations. I'm interested to hear how partnerships work on your end. I mean, when you're partnering with maybe local schools or for-profit businesses or other nonprofits or other Boys and Girls Club offices, how does that work? And is that how you guys kind of get the local exposure up? Or is there other ways that you all look to kind of spread your web?
Yeah, so I think no, that's a great question. So I think I would say it this way. I think you have to, and it sounds trite, and it sounds like it's out of whatever the new age leadership book of the month is, but partnerships, period, can't be built in a transactional way, right? They got to be
Yeah.
built in a reciprocal way. So if let's just say if we're engaging with a bank and a bank is supporting our work, then maybe we put that bank in front of the kids who are going through the culinary program and opening bank accounts with their first paychecks, and we start teaching financial stability because we know that whoever a young person opens their first account with, they're likely to stay with forever. I've still got a Wells Fargo account that I opened at 16 years old in Mechanicsville, Virginia with First Union, which became Wachovia, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
still got that account because it was my first account, right? So there's this idea that you have to do that. The other thing that I think that CEOs in general have to learn is they got to divorce their ego from the work. A lot of people think I'm a ghost. I don't go to a lot of things. Not because I don't care, but because if I'm in the room, my people can't shine, right? So how do we spread our web? We get great people like Ian, like Meg Shirey, like Leanne Dees, like the folks that are on our team, like the incredible folks that are running our clubs, and we put them responsible for owning certain parts of the community and growing the brand and making the connections and delivering on the powerful partnerships, right? And then if I were criticizing the Boys and Girls Clubs, I would say we believe a lot in substance over selfies. So you're not going to see my big head in the front of a room of kids posted on social media a lot because I'm about the work. And I think when you're authentically about the work and you're driving the kind of impact we have at the kind of scale that we have, the influence and the recognition goes. But we do have a hell of a lot of really great partners here. Um, partners here in town: Banner Lake Academy, House of Hope, Four Cs. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Tykes and Teens, of folks that we collaborate with on a regular basis who sort of raise, so that rising tide raises all ships. These are good people coming to the work at the right way, and that helps us. It's really not about growing our influence. It's about how do we more responsibly as a community serve kids and families, right? And so that's really that's I think what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting point because I thought about that when you had mentioned how partnerships, a lot of times they happen organically or they happen more synergistically. I mean, even in the for-profit world, a lot of times you see that where you end up you make more of an impact. And even some of those organizations that you mentioned, House of Hope is an example where we did something with them, I think last year. I could see how that's a good marriage, a good partnership between those two organizations because there's so much, you could do a lot, in your own, under your own roof, but then you can do a lot more as soon as you start putting things together for different strategies or different um, specific things that you want to accomplish. How has demand for what you guys offer changed? Because especially in recent years, I know you had mentioned that the operating budget has gone up. Is that because, on a national level there maybe there's more money being allocated, or the fundraisers are going well, or is demand for what you all provide going up because you're providing more, or because maybe there's people who might be struggling? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts might be in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that question. So I would say, as an immediate response, every one of our clubs in some way has a waiting list of kids waiting to get in. And that list continues to grow and grow. Sometimes it's specific to an age group, but if you look at our Port Salerno club, which is the smallest club in our system, we have 160 some kids there every day. We have a waiting list of over 200 to get in there, right?
Wow.
So when you have waiting lists like that, and you have, money's finite, right? To some degree, it's easy to say you can always raise more money, but that's not the truth of the world, right? That's one. And two, like, creating new facilities, i.e. building them, identifying the land, building them, working through the permitting, doesn't happen in 6 months, right? So how do you grow your impact? You create mobile units. So we have 15, 18 of our own buses. We have a mobile classroom. We have, we kind of take the work to the community and then try to drive them back to the clubs as these super hubs where you can get a level of experience that you can't get off of a mobile unit. So, that's one way that we have grown the budget and grown demand, is we've taken the work to folks. We have, through a remarkable partnership with the Boys and Girls, with the school district, we were running an AmeriCorps program. We were going into the elementary schools that had some challenges around third grade reading and doing literacy work. And then we were in the middle schools with a mentoring based program focused on the kids who have a history of bad behavior, bad attendance. I'm not a smart guy, but if you put butts in seats and you make them behave, grades go up. And we were seeing that happen. And that's not always, some super well thought out intervention. It's Fletch going up to Josh being like, "Hey buddy, you gonna be at school tomorrow? I like seeing you here today, man. Let's hang out tomorrow. See you tomorrow." And Josh shows up, right? It's just,
Right.
it's not, sometimes we like to overthink stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not
yeah.
rocket science. So we've grown in that way. Now the biggest place we've grown far and away is in our college access and our workforce work, right? So, again, I talked some about the workforce programs. We do have a college access part of our program, which helps you with college applications, personal statements, interview prep, helps you fill in the FAFSA, helps you figure out how to finance college, and helps you figure out where you want to go based on the earned income potential of your job, right? Maybe you're not going to go to an institution that costs $80,000 a year if you want to be an elementary school teacher, because the debt load doesn't make sense, right? And
Sure.
so, that's the single biggest place we've grown is in our teens. That's probably 6x over the past 3 or 4 years, and part of it is the Boys and Girls Clubs has changed its identity too, right? Like our teen program used to be Xbox and a ping pong table, man, and
Right. Yeah.
and some pizzas, right? And that's good. And we will always be a safe place for a kid that needs it to come, right? And to have and we'll wrap our arms around that kid. But however, we've changed our identity, and we're okay if you don't need to come see us 5 days a week. If Josh wants to come 2 days a week to learn to be a carpenter, great for Josh, right? If Sally wants to come one day a week to learn the manufacturing, that's how we've changed our identity a little bit, and it's really been remarkable in how much our teen program in particular has grown.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful as well. I'm interested to hear what you think. I mean, maybe this might be a little long winded, but what does what does a typical day look like for someone, for a kid who's coming in there? And I only think that because you had mentioned, hey, some kids maybe they'll come in there a couple days. I'm sure there's kids that you see pretty frequently, and like you said, I think sometimes maybe we do overthink certain things, but it's also nice to provide the breadth of resources that you all provide. So I'm interested to hear what you think. A kid, or if there's families watching this, and maybe they have children or friends or family who might be able to um, benefit from it at some point. What is a typical day like for a kid who comes in there?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So, and we have to kind of break it two ways, right? Because our summer program, we got kids for a whole lot longer than we do
Right.
during the
Yeah.
school year, right?
Yeah.
So really, if you're in elementary school, when you walk through our doors, one of the first things we're going to do is feed you, and here's why, right? So, my I have a second grader that was in school here, and when lunch is at 10:30 in the morning, right? By the time 2:30 or 3 gets, their kids are hungry, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
and again, we have a hot food requirement kind of that runs through our culinary program. So every day our kids are going to get a snack separate from a hot dinner, but you're going to get dinner. And again, the baseline is every kid is going to get tutoring, or essentially tutoring from a certified teacher, right? Now, that might be big group, that might be small group, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have something that we call power hour, which is sort of like academic acceleration. That could be more tutoring if you're behind. That could be something based on Legos. That could be something that's STEM based, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, very
And then we
cool.
rotate through the experiential stuff. You're getting your music, your arts, your sports, your dance. All of those things get broken in, along with some breaks and some free time. And we have games on the walls that only work with your sweat equity, so that you can play against other club members, and those kinds of things. And then certainly there also is the outside of the sports, for lack of a better term, we have what you might kind of think of as in your mind is almost like a PE every day. So we're going to have some way for all kids who, even if they're not interested in sports, because of our commitment to healthy lifestyles, you're going to move for 15 or 20 minutes, right?
Nice.
Even if we're bringing in a yoga instructor, even if whatever it is, you're going to do something that gets that body moving, because we understand how much that health affects your performance in the classroom, or affects your performance everywhere. In the summers, we got folks longer. We're going to do breakfast, lunch, and a snack instead of dinner. They're usually, have left us by dinner. And you've got a good chunk of your day. You got a couple hours of your day there again for academics. And a lot of times we structure how a kid goes through our academics based on some data sharing agreements we have with the school district. So I like to say we can see a kid's ABCs. We can see their attendance, their behavior, and their course performance
Oh,
in
that's
real time.
fantastic.
So it would be impossible for Josh to come to the club and say, "Hey, man, I don't have any math homework." We're gonna be like, "Yeah, you do, and you failed this test last week, and we're gonna that
That's
kind of thing
that's awesome.
when we need to, right?" So, and then summers just we have kids for 10 weeks over the summer, right? So that's 50 days. And most of our clubs go on somewhere between 15 and 18 field trips over the summer. So that is our single. So during the year, we're bringing a lot of field trips into the clubs. Your bush
Hmm.
wildlife and those kinds of things are coming in, right? Over the summer, we're
Nice.
sending kids to see space shuttle launches. We're sending them to Lion Safari. We're sending them to see plays. We're sending them to Universal. We've got some of our college tours happen over the summer. First time kids have ever been on a plane is with the Boys and Girls Clubs, right? Some of them, the first time they've ever left Martin County or been on a boat is with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and that's what's special. The summer becomes a real special time of this idea that we know once a kid can see it, they can be it, right? And
Yeah.
once they see it, their mind's never going back to that lower expectation. Now they
Yeah.
know what's out there. They know you've kind of redefined what's possible. So summers are a really cool time. 15, 18 field trips, no matter what age you are, over the summer. So it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. I wish
What?
I had gone through this Boys and Girls Clubs.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. I had heard, and now that's kind of coming back to me, that you guys can kind of see what's going on in school. So sometimes you have that tie-in with what's going on earlier in the day with these kids. Okay, hey, maybe they need to work on math or reading or what have you. Um, and it's interesting to hear. I can definitely see what you mean, where once you open that bottle and these kids see different experiences or they see what's possible, they're looking at a space shuttle launch off. It's so much more real, the possibilities of what they can be or what they can do or what they can learn. It's not something that they're looking at on a YouTube video anymore. I think that's really powerful. And I'm interested to hear what you think. How can someone, what kind of support does the Boys and Girls Club need from people in the public? If someone's watching this, is it funding or advocacy or volunteering, or what are things that people can do to support you or get involved?
Yeah, so I think obviously it's all of the above, right? But I think that if I were going to give a piece of advice to anyone, I would say it's pick somewhere and give of your time. When you're working with young people, the single biggest differentiator in their trajectory of success is a meaningful connection with an adult, right? So in our clubs, we've got one staff person for every 15, 18 kids. Now that doesn't count the extras that we bring in, the yogas, the music, whatever it is. So volunteers that want to come in and do sports coaching or tutoring or any of those kinds of things, or just generally be there to help hand out meals or talk to kids or whatever it is, as long as we can manage expectations. Because listen, a lot of our kids have had a lot of folks walk away from them in their life, right? So as long as you can make a commitment with integrity to the Boys and Girls Clubs and say, hey, I'm only going to be able to come once a month, but I'm going to be there every fourth Thursday. That's perfect for us because we know that can be such a big difference. And I would say do that with any nonprofit, right? Give of your time, meaningfully engage, because then I'll tell you, all the rest of the stuff that you just said comes after that meaningful engagement, right?
Right.
Advocacy exists in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's calling your senator. Sometimes it's telling somebody at a dinner party or at the bar that what they think about your nonprofit, whether it's House of Hope or whoever, or Boys and Girls Clubs, isn't right. Or the YMCA, hey, what you just said isn't right. I go there. I know what their kids are like. They're doing a hell of a job, right? That's advocacy. That's grassroots advocacy, and that's how we change. So the rest follows. I would say, pick a place and give of your time. Give of your time in a way that makes sense for the organization. Now, Boys and Girls Clubs is big enough that people come to us all the time with ideas to volunteer. And generally speaking, we say, listen, no promises. I can't tell you if the kids will like it, but we'll give it a shot. I'll give you an example. We have a huge crochet program in our Port Salerno club because a lady in Port Salerno wanted to teach kids how to crochet, and she was passionate about it. And I said, listen, I don't know that the kids from Port Salerno are going to get behind crochet. Now it's got a waiting list, right? So,
That's unreal.
but that person comes in, that they engage with the kids in a meaningful way. They know that this lady's authentic. They know she's really there because she cares about them. That matters. And now the thing's got a waiting list. And if you
Yep.
asked me before the lady walked into my office, would Boys and Girls Clubs start a crochet program? I'd have told you no. Of course, I'd have told you no. But now, you got this little cohort, this small cohort of young ladies, right, who are meeting on a regular basis, and now they're building friendships and they're talking, and it gives another way for our staff to engage. So I would say just give up your time, man. Find a way to engage with that charity of choice. Then the advocacy and the money and all those other things will follow. But I think if you can find a way to meaningfully engage and move the mission forward, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story with the crocheting because that is really interesting. I guess that is a testament to you're coming from a place of contribution and um, a real genuine desire to help. Probably means more that feeling of authenticity, as you said, probably means just as much for a lot of children as the actual thing they're doing in and of itself. And that's kind of a powerful testament to circle everything back.
Yeah, I mean, kids have a pretty great beat, but they have a pretty good bullshit meter, right? I've got a 7 and a
Yeah,
10 year old, both girls, and
yeah.
but they know the deal, right? So they can judge what's happening pretty quickly. So
That's awesome. Well, we're just about before we finish up. Do you want to? Why don't you tell people how they can find Boys and Girls Club? If there's anything coming up, I know you guys usually have. I don't know if you have any upcoming events, but I know you usually have some stuff during season, right? That comes out. You do like a golf tournament or.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so again, it's just BGC as in Boys Girls Club, bgcmartin.org. We'd love for you to connect with Vanessa on our team and talk about how you might like to volunteer or an idea that you might have to sort of help move the mission forward. Maybe you're a chef and you want to come teach our kids your favorite recipe. Maybe you're a former teacher and you want to tutor. Maybe you own I don't know, a fabric business and you want to give fabric to our sewing program, whatever that might be. bgcmartin.org. But the biggest things that we would love for folks to get engaged with is we do a pretty big holiday toy drive, right? December 18th will be our big wrapping day. But what's special about us is we also, every time the clubs close for a holiday or for training or for those kinds of things, we send food home with our most food insecure families, and really most of our families, perishable and non-perishable. Last year we did almost 200 tons of food that went out when we were during the times that we were closed across our system, right? So we need help packing food boxes and wrapping presents, and it doesn't really require any money, but come out and spread that holiday cheer. In our clubs, we have the Santa's coming in. We're going to take some of those holiday photos and send them to you digitally, because we think that every kid sort of deserves to sort of feel the magic of the season, right? And so that's one great way people can get involved. And if you own a business, we're going to be doing a toy drive. We're going to do it with kind of the QR code with the Amazon wish list, because we're trying to be tech savvy these days instead of those big cumbersome boxes that sit out everywhere. We got a pretty cool, and it's the only one that happens in Martin County, like a Nashville Songwriters event that happens at the end of February 28th. So there'll be some tickets on sale for that here soon, and we would love to have folks join and learn about our work. The other big free event that I will plug, and it's the last thing I'll plug, is our Youth of the Year event, which is Thursday, February 26th. It is essentially a year-long competition, scholarship and other competition, where we are choosing someone to represent us at the state and or national level to compete. But our Youth of the Year is someone who best embodies the spirit of what it means to be a club member and what you can accomplish as a club member. So these are kids that have pretty compelling stories, right? And they've benefited from the clubs, and we've benefited from them being members in our clubs. These are older kids, so we run a middle school competition and a high school based competition. It's a free event. It happens in the Stewart Club, and if you really want to, hear what the work is about, it's easy to talk to the CEO. In some ways, I'm paid to tell you we're good, but come and talk to the kids who've gone through the programs, and then you'll understand, what the Boys and Girls Clubs is about. So Youth of the Year, February 26th, 2026 is a date to remember. We have some fundraisers and some holiday things and those kinds of things. And I certainly would welcome any engagement in that, but Youth of the Year, that's the place I'd want you to come and see the kids and talk to the kids who've gone through our clubs, because that's the magic of the work. So.
That's great. What I can do is I can share links to a lot of these, the website and where the events
Awesome.
are published as well. And then I'll link up with Ian, because it would be great to get, like you said, like a QR code or maybe more information as these events are coming up. Any way we can help with the exposure or the mission, we're happy to. So I appreciate you being on, Mr. Fletcher. Thanks so much. And it was great talking with you and hearing more about what you all do. And we appreciate what you're doing for the community.
Listen, I'm not going to let you go without an ask from you. All right. So
Please.
as we build out our digital music production studio, we've got some folks that are really helping build out kids' skill set in the podcasting, CapCut, sports media production world. So would love for you to come in and maybe lead a little something with a small group of our club members and teach them how to do this kind of thing.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I'm a bit of the podcasting world, I guess, kind of came on more out of necessity. We had a lot of advertising partners who would link us up with different nonprofits or different politicians. And so we started doing this, but my background is kind of in the digital marketing sphere. So I'm warming up to the podcasting. So, hey, if we can help, I'm happy to. I'll shoot Ian kind of a follow-up email and
Cool.
In that little chain we've gotten. Yeah. Anything that I can do to help, I'm more than happy to.
I appreciate that, and you're doing the work, right? So the kids, the guy that's out there actually doing the interviews and doing the work and doing the editing and doing all those kinds of things you have more wisdom to share with the kids than you probably know. So I appreciate you having me on. Yeah. I appreciate you giving this opportunity to the Boys and Girls Club. So yeah, all right.
You got it. Take care. Thanks again for being on.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Current by TreasureCoast.com. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Follow us on social media or visit TreasureCoast.com for local events, tips, and news. Have a guest or topic you'd love to hear on the show? Let us know at TreasureCoast.com. Until next time, keep riding the current and enjoying everything the Treasure Coast has to offer. See See you soon.